Okay. Hello, everyone. Hi. You guys give me just 1 second. I'm going to get all of my settings like connected and turned on and get my questions pulled up. So let me know in the chat, where are you guys joining me from? Well, I get all of the settings because I am going to attempt to get this going on Facebook as well. Give me just 1 second. I think it's working. I think. I am currently at my sister-in-law's house, and I am used to having multiple screens where I can have multiple tabs open or in multiple windows where I can see everything. And it is not like that for me today. So I'm feeling a little thrown off, but I think we should be good to go. All right. So hi, everyone. Hi, Marcy from Florida. Oh, my Marcy with a Y. My name twin is here. Hi, everyone. Hi, Crystal and Heather. Crystal and Heather, y'all are both from Arlington, Texas. Shout out, because I'm a Texas girl too. Are both of you, are y'all friends? Do you happen to know each other?
I'm not sure.
Well, that's okay. All right, so I am excited because today we are chatting with 5 Managing Math Stations alumni, and we are just gonna talk and chat all things guided math. And I want to just kind of let them share their experience about joining Managing Math Stations and what has been beneficial for them. And so the first thing I want to do, because I only have 5, and so I'm going to call on each of you. I'm just going to let you unmute for a second. Tell me your grade level, where you teach, and then also, when did you join Managing Math Station? So what year did you join? And all the things. So just kind of tell me a little bit about yourself. So Lynn, I'm going to have you go first because you're the first one that I can see on my screen. So tell me a little bit about what grade level you teach and all the things.
Okay, I teach 2nd grade in 𝗕𝗃, and it's been about 2 years, and I really enjoyed the information that was provided throughout and all the materials.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. All right, Courtney, what about you? What grade level do you teach and where are you from?
So I teach 2nd grade and I am in Lubbock, Texas.
Oh,
and
what's up?
Right. And I actually purchased Managing Math Stations last year around this time in preparation for going back to the classroom.
Okay. Awesome. Do you mind if I ask what school because I went to Texas Tech. So what school do you teach at in?
So I'm at Legacy Elementary in Friendship ISD.
Okay. Okay. I student taught at Crestview.
Okay.
Well, at Crestview and Willow Bend. Okay. So
yes.
All right. Well, thank you. All right, Melissa, what about you? What grade level do you teach and where do you live?
I teach 1st grade in Southern California, and I purchased the modules in June of 2021 and implemented them right away, implemented the guided math right away that next school year. So I just finished up the 2nd year of implementing it.
Oh, awesome. Okay, I can't wait to hear about your experience as well. All right, Crystal, what about you?
Well, I've always been a fan of Marcy and the second Statler math. Became a fan since I was a parent teaching, help with my second grade daughter. I teach at Miller Elementary in Arlington, Texas, with Arlington ISD, and I purchased the math, managing math stations in 2018.
Okay. Oh, so you're one of my like originals. Yay. I feel like I knew that. Yay. All right, Carrie. And what about you? And Carrie, oh, I see that you mine.
Yes, sorry, I had a thing come up this morning, so I'm heading home. I'll be home in like 3 blocks, but I teach. I've taught second grade in Marion, Iowa, for the past 2 years, and I'm going to first grade for this next year. I saw you on Instagram, and I was on vacation in Seattle, Washington, and jumped on one of your like one of these and purchased right away in 2021. So, and I love the supplemental materials because we had a curriculum that we had to follow. But the small group was beautiful because I had all of these other things that were much more age appropriate and engaging for the kids. So
Awesome. Well, yay. I can't wait to hear a little bit more about your experience. And you guys, I swear it never fails. My husband, he knows that I am doing this. He knows that I am doing this, and he's called me twice in the last like 5 minutes.
yeah, my husband decided to go to Dallas for 2 days for work. So I'm like, I've got the kids and all of life happening. So
yeah, and my phone's on do not disturb, but he is the only one set to where it will actually ring if my phone is on do not disturb. So I just message him. I'm like, is this an emergency? Because I'm a little busy at the moment. So okay, yay. Well, I'm so thankful that each of you are here chatting with me today. So what I'm going to do is I am just going to call on each of you and just ask you a question and have you share your experience with managing math stations and implementing the guided math framework into your classroom. So let me get my questions pulled up here. So let's see, Melissa. So prior to joining managing math stations, what was your experience with guided math? Had you tried the framework before? Had you tried to teach in small groups or implement math stations? And just tell me a little bit about your experience prior to joining.
So I've always done small group work since the first year of my teaching. I'm going into my 17th year of teaching, and it was always something that I loved, and the kids love that teacher time. But small group math was not on my radar. Like, I always focused on reading and literacy. That's what my master's is in. So when I started following you and I went to some of your workshops and webinars, I was like, wow, this is good stuff. I need to start implementing this like yesterday. So since I have done that though, I really see increased engagement, because this is my deal. Before guided math, I was doing way too much explicit whole group instruction. And then there were behaviors, there was off task, things happening, and kids weren't learning the material because they were sitting still for too long. So I would say that is the greatest benefit of the guided math model, is that I'm able to help the kids that need the help or challenge the ones that need challenged. And I'm not putting out fires and dealing with behaviors the whole time. Like, I really feel like I'm an effective teacher right now.
Oh, I love that. Like, that just makes my teacher heart so happy. And so what would you say that after implementing the framework, so you said that you saw a shift in behavior and you saw a shift in just really being able to meet the needs of all of your students. So how would you say that managing math stations helped you do that?
Well, I implemented some assessments, and then I kept binders so I could track to see who was mastering certain skills who needed more work. And then I formed those small groups so that I could meet those needs. And then, also not having to deal with all the behaviors. So there was a lot more teaching within that 90-minute block of time.
Okay. So that was actually going to be one of my next questions for you, was how much time do you have to implement? So you said that you felt like you are being a more effective teacher. And so do you feel like you are really able to meet the needs of all of your students on their individual levels where they need to be? Do you feel like you are able to accomplish that?
No, because I'm not perfect. My goal for this next year is to work more with those excelling students and find ways to challenge them. My focus for the past couple of years, especially coming off the pandemic, of course, was those struggling kids who had gaps and holes. And then I felt like my time is so limited by the time I get to my small group time that I didn't have time to meet with those higher kids like ever. And I feel really guilty saying that. And I feel bad about that. But I had a lot of struggling students that I felt like I had to get to. So I'm not 100% perfect in this yet.
Well, that's okay. And I am raising my hand to say that I'll be honest, I have not had that experience from teaching post-pandemic, but I have in the past teaching small groups where it is, I wouldn't say easier, but where I have felt like I haven't been as an effective teacher to those that are above grade level, because you do tend to focus so much on those struggling students because they're the ones that need it the most, but everyone else also needs that support as well. And so I have been in that situation too, where I have felt like I'm not giving my best to everyone. But with that being said, coming after the pandemic, and I think almost all of us can agree that the learning gaps they're bigger than ever. And so would you feel like your small group instruction has benefited those who did struggle and who suffered the most from the pandemic? Do you feel like that is something that has been beneficial, that you've been able to reach those students?
Absolutely, because those are the kids that missed out like on the hands-on, like using manipulatives back in kindergarten, some of them, or before that. And so I'm able to take those out at the small group table and give them that concrete example using those hands-on supplies. Whereas, half the class might not need to sit through that. So that's when you're going to get the behaviors and the off-task behavior. So yes, it's been very good to be able to see where they are, see what their gaps are, pull the activities or the manipulatives or the little games and bring them up to the table and just spend like 10 minutes and address those areas with them. So yes, that part has been amazing.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing. All right, Courtney, I'm going to come and I'm going to ask you the same question. So prior to managing math stations, what was your experience with guided math?
Okay, so prior to it, I really didn't have any experience with it, basically, because when I first started teaching, I taught kindergarten. And so it was a little bit different. That was also 14 years ago. At the same time, I took a break from teaching to raise my kiddos and whatnot. So it was kind of a new concept for me. And I first heard about it through our assistant principal. She gave me a book and I was like, okay, I really need to kind of figure this out. And then started kind of seeing your stuff pop up on Facebook. And I was like, okay, this is how I'm going to do it, because sometimes reading doesn't just do it for me. I need to see, hear, just kind of embrace the concept a little bit easier. And that made it so much more manageable for me to understand how to frame it so that I could make it work for my classroom.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Crystal, what about you? What was your experience?
Well, I did small group, but it was not to the intensity of looking at more of the data every day and how you could do each lesson and then pull from it and then from a whole group and then go direct to a small group. And so I really like managing math stations in your curriculum because I was able to, like the first teacher was saying, I'm sorry, I forgot her name. She was saying how managing behaviors is real, like especially if you want to teach in a small group. So my kids love that I can change out things every month and I can spiral the math and stay aligned with what they need to practice. I like the hot topics, which is the higher order thinking. I love that I was able to document, which helped with parent conferences and just help with data for them to have their own stream accountability, to chart their own growth. So I really like everything about it.
I love that. I love that. Okay, Lynn, my next question is gonna be for you. So what made you decide to invest in managing math stations? So what kind of made you take that leap to join the program?
Well, for me, excuse me, I was looking for structure that I could use throughout the day. And literacy, we had the workshop model, and I still didn't understand it, but your guided math gave me the structure to apply to across the curriculum. So I haven't been able to do a lot of the math pieces because we have a curriculum, but I pull and supplement like many of the others. And my goal this year is to have the more stations and centers, because from using your model in literacy, my students soared. They were able to handle the small group lessons. They were able to excel in everything. And I think it transferred, even though I couldn't do it in math and have those stations, they were applying what we had practiced. So my goal this year is to get those stations more in place to work a little bit more, because I think this group that's coming up is going to be a little more needy. So that's how it's worked for me.
Awesome. I love that. Well, let's see. I was going to ask Carrie next, but I will. Oh, there she is. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
All right, Carrie, I'm going to ask you the same question. So what made you decide to invest in managing math stations and kind of take that leap to join the program?
So one of the things was I had been a special ed teacher for, sorry, my dog is wanting to say hello.
That's okay.
Been special ed teacher for the previous 6 years. And then we had moved away out of country for a couple of years, and then we came back, and I noticed that with implementing standards within our district and everything, things were not aligning well with the curriculum that we were using, especially in the assessment portion of it. And so I was really looking into creating common formative assessments across our grade level so that everybody was getting the same kind of data and we were able to look at things more clearly. And then I saw your things and was finding that my students were getting bored with the lessons. And so when I went back into my second year of second grade, I was pulling in so many more of your materials and resources and lesson ideas, still following our curriculum, but really honing in on some of those things that I think that the kids enjoyed and were more engaged with. And then when I was able to do the small groups, I was able to implement like those hot topics and different things, and they were able to do more things independently, and they were more successful, which brought down those behaviors and that off-task behaviors for the students. And so that's where I think I had my biggest bang for the buck, is I was really able to, yes, I have a curriculum, but this really was like the bow on the package. It really pulled everything together and helped students make sense of what we were doing and apply it to their everyday lives. So.
Oh, I love hearing that. And so, one of the big things that I personally like about managing math stations, because I've done a lot of online professional development, and I've done a lot of in-person professional development, obviously, but one of my biggest things when I first started in the educational consultant world was I would go to a training and I might learn like some bits and pieces or learn valuable information. But then when I would go back home or, go back to the classroom, if I wanted to implement what was taught, I had to go and search and find the resources for that. And sometimes that could be a challenge, or I would just get kind of stressed out and overwhelmed and think, well, I don't have time to look up or find the materials needed to implement this. And so when I started doing professional development and when I created Managing Math Stations, one of the things that I wanted to provide teachers with was that not only am I giving you these training videos, but I'm also giving you the resources that you need to go along with it, whether it be curriculum or it could just be like a simple half sheet student accountability page. It's just something like very simple, but that was one of the things that I wanted to really provide teachers with, is so that they don't have to go searching for everything they need to make all of this work. And so, Courtney, I'm going to ask you, do you feel like, oh, I hit the table and the computer started shaking. But Courtney, do you feel like the training videos inside of Managing Math Stations and the downloadable, like the content that you got with that, do you feel like they aligned? Do you feel like that was beneficial? Did that help you take off some of the stress of trying to figure out how to make it all work?
Absolutely. So one of the things that I really loved was the whole idea of the math tubs. I took that and ran with it, and I loved it because all my kids had everything they needed right at their fingertips, and it made it so much simpler for me to figure out what needed to go in those and how to best plan for those, and then how to best plan the rotations and making sure that the kids understood the expectations of the rotations and everything. That just made my life, especially going back into the classroom and having umpteen gazillion things to plan for and prepare for, it just made it so much simpler and smoother for me.
Oh, well, thank you. All right, Lynn, what about you? Do you feel like the downloadable content that you got with the videos, do you feel like, did that make the implementation process, did that make it smoother and a little bit less stressful?
Yes, definitely. And I've actually taken what you're doing and using it in a different way, as far as making sure that this year I have a folder that says planning 23-24, and all the things that you've given are going to go in a math folder within that. So I don't have to research. I can just go, okay, math. Oh, this is what I wanted to do. And it's at my fingertips, and it will make it so much easier, because as you said, we spend way too much time searching for things that we know we want to use. And so I've been able to take that and I have it marked, and it's been so nice.
Oh, well, yeah, see, that was just kind of my ultimate goal when I started, when I started doing the professional development side of education, is that I wanted it to make it as smooth as possible. And so I love hearing that. So another question that I have, Melissa, I'm going to ask you this. So with Managing Math Stations, everything has always been self-paced. So that means that you can watch any of the training videos anytime you want. You can binge them all at one time. You can take things really slow. You can have them playing while you're hanging out by the pool, or your kids are watching Netflix or whatever it might be. So did you like that aspect of it? Is that everything was self-paced? I never wanted anything to feel rushed, just because I do work with teachers from all over, and I never know, what their schedule is going to be like, much less their school schedule. And so how did you feel about the self-paced portion of it?
I love that, and I prefer that, because when I started this, I was a busy mom. I mean, my kids are kind of grown now and way more independent. But having a younger one here at home, when I started this, I was able to do a module and stop. And then I would go back to it and think, okay, what do I want to print from that? And then I'd make, I'd start the tub and make the centers. And then the next day I would attack another module. But then if it was like a busy end of the week, I knew I can come back to it next week. It doesn't have to be done now. My goal was to finish it before summer was over, which was doable. But yes, I love self-paced. I appreciate that.
Oh, well, good. That is good to hear. Carrie, what about you? How did you feel about like the self-paced portion of it?
I enjoyed that. I loved the flexibility that I was able to use with the modules and with the resources. It's like, I could watch them and I don't have to do all of the things right now. It's like, okay, we don't do geometry until March. So it's, if I'm doing this through the summer, I can always go back to that portion of it, refresh on the materials, refresh on the module, and then prepare what I need to when it comes time to. And so the flexibility and the organization of everything is just, I mean, it doesn't get any better. It doesn't get any easier than that. So.
Oh, well, good. That makes me feel good, because I'm not an organized person at all. As much as I wish, I am probably as type B as it gets, even though sometimes it does not appear that way. And so that makes me feel good that I am somewhat organized in parts of my life. My husband always says I'm really good at being organized in like my business and with the classroom side of things, but like at home, nope. I don't have the brain capacity for all of that. So that makes me feel good that someone thinks I'm somewhat organized. I'm gonna tell him that you said that. Awesome. Okay, so let me see. Let me pull up my my next question here. So Crystal, are you there? If you're not, that's totally okay.
Yes, I'm here.
No, okay. All right. So Crystal, my question for you is, what do you think your biggest takeaway from joining Managing Math Stations and learning just really how to implement the guided math framework, not necessarily like the curriculum, but just learning how things are structured and how to form your small groups and, use it. I think it was you that mentioned that, it really helps you kind of hone in on your data to figure out, okay, what do we need to be focusing on with our students? So just what would you say your biggest takeaway from it all is? What would you?
Well, it really helps me with, because we have like PLCs, like with teachers and just going over the data, to be able to give resources that's worked in my class and suggestions on how they can make theirs better by using something that is engaging. That's the main thing, because when I look at, what I have with my district, it's always good to have something to supplement that really works and that worked for years. I don't have to say, you know what, let me go find something else. For me, it's like when I do meet with my students, I can get that one-on-one with them and they feel comfortable sharing because they know that they're growing. And they don't have that fear of it because they know they're going to have extra time and stations to practice that skill. And then also with me. And I'll be able to see with the exit ticket how they are growing.
Oh, I love hearing that. And I'm gonna stay on subject, but one of the things that you just said was one of the things that you enjoy is that they feel comfortable working with you and they don't have that fear of failure or that fear of embarrassment. And that is one of the things that nationwide we can see. You know, I each year whenever I do this, I always tend to share some like mathematical statistics within the United States. And one of the more recent ones I found was that the majority of the millennial generation, they don't have the mathematical knowledge above an 8th grader. And one of the reasons for that is because when they were in elementary school, or let's say even they get up into upper elementary, and they don't understand what is being taught. And maybe they felt embarrassed. Maybe they didn't want to ask for help. Maybe I think embarrassment plays like a big part in it, because maybe they're afraid they don't understand or they don't want to be laughed at. And because when you're teaching in whole group, those misconceptions and those questions, they don't ever get to be addressed for everyone. And that's not an intentional thing. It's just as you as the teacher, you're only one person. And when you're working with 25 other kids, and let's say 15 of those 25 kids are struggling and they don't understand, and you're only one human, it's impossible for you to address those misconceptions. And so what kids would do is they would feel embarrassed, they wouldn't ask for help, and they would just tend to fall further and further behind. But what I love that you just said was that by working with students in a small group, they felt more comfortable and they felt more open to sharing their struggles and to ask questions. And that to me is one of the biggest wins, like light bulb moments, I think that I ever had as a teacher teaching in this format, because you are able to reach those kids that are reluctant in a way that you can't do in whole group. And no matter how hard you try, those reluctant learners, they're still going to hold back. Whereas when you start to implement the small group instruction side of it, they become more and more open because they feel more and more comfortable. I'm hoping that I'm making sense with what I'm saying, but I loved that you said that was one of your biggest takeaways, because like for me, being self-taught with the guided math framework and, in learning to implement this, and that was one of the biggest eye openers for me, is that when you see those reluctant learners who, that they have that potential inside of them, but they're fearful, or they might feel embarrassed, and to see them start to kind of shine and open up a little bit, and to see those small baby steps with growth, like that for me is way bigger than any sort of academic test, because it just, I don't know, it would just light me up inside that they were starting to feel confident in their learning. So I'm hoping that made sense. I kind of got off subject there a little bit, but I love that you said that. So Courtney, I'm going to ask you the same question. What would you say your key takeaway or your biggest takeaway from joining Managing Math Stations? What would you say that was?
I think my biggest was just basically figuring out how to frame my time that I have with my kids so that I could find where and how to implement small groups and things, because I feel like, especially at the beginning of the year, it was kind of a hot mess trying to figure everything out, but I felt like by the end of the year, having had the time to go through everything and do all that I was a more effective teacher with my kiddos, because I was making the time to spend that time with them in the small groups and making effective lessons for them that they could grasp the concept and do better than they were doing at the beginning of the year.
Oh, I love hearing that. And Courtney, I'm going to ask this real quick. How much time do you have to teach math?
So our schedule is really weird, and I'm going to talk to admin about it, but because my block was 60 minutes, but it was broken up between lunch and recess. So I feel like there was so much lost time that I didn't end up getting my full 60 minutes. So I feel like that was kind of a harder thing to manage with, just because there was that downtime to try and get ready for lunch and things like that. So I'm going to see if we can streamline it a little bit better. But knowing a little bit more now, taking time to go back through some of the modules, that's something I'm doing this summer, is going back through them and just maybe trying to, if we can't change it, how I can do that better for my kids.
Okay. I love that. And so do you feel, because one of the common questions that I get is, teachers, they feel like they don't have enough time. And I know you just said, like, it was broken up between specials and things like that. But do you feel like 60 minutes, do you feel like that's enough time? Did you feel like that it was doable to the best of your ability when you did have a split schedule and things were broken up?
I think 60 minutes is doable. I would prefer more, just because sometimes with some of the content and things in second grade, it's just, I feel like there wasn't enough time to make sure that my babies were on task and things like that, so that they could do well on their district assessments or everything, just in preparing them for next year with, their big major testing and things like that. I feel like even just bumping at 15 more minutes would just benefit those kiddos just so much more.
Yeah, I agree. So research shows that typically to be the most effective with your math instruction, it's recommended to have a 90-minute math block. But I know that a lot of teachers, you don't have the control over that like you might wish that you could. So hopefully, I'm hoping, that you can talk with your admin and at least get those where it can be a consecutive time frame and things aren't broken up. And I think that would be just a good concern to address with them, and tell them everything that you just shared and say, like, hey, this being set this way, I am not being able to reach them effectively like I wish that I could. But overall, I'm glad that you feel comfortable with what you have been given. All right, Lynn, what would you say is your biggest takeaway from it all?
I'm going to say, I really think the structure, because I love math, and I was one of those students who just did what they needed. I was never pushed. And with the structure, I'm allowed the opportunity to challenge some of my students. I found that I was always spending more time with those kids that were struggling, but I was this way, using the structure, I'm able to spend time and push the upper end, which what I found was the other students were striving to get there. So on our district assessment, my students all went up in math, because I found that they were like, oh, I want to be able to do that. And so using the structure, my students were moving successfully through math. And I looked at it with my curriculum person, and she said, it's amazing to see that my whole class was above the 50th percentile. I mean, she said, it's almost unheard of. And I'm like, well, that, it made you feel good, and it's like, okay, so now I want to make it even better.
Yay. Oh my goodness. That gave me goosebumps. I love hearing that makes me so happy Oh,
Yep.
you have no idea that just like that like lights a fire inside of me. So what I want to do now, we're going to kind of start wrapping up, but I'm just going to go around and I am going to ask each of you, what would be something that you feel like other teachers should know about managing math stations? Maybe they are on the fence. They're thinking about joining. Maybe they're not sure if they want to make that investment themselves. So just what is one piece of advice or anything that you feel like teachers should know about managing math stations? So Carrie, I am going to start with you.
I think the one thing is it's all there. Like you've got the lessons, you've got the materials, you've got the games for small group, you've got independent work, you've got assessments, you've got pre-assessments. It's all there. And so you're not having to go out and search on the internet to find everything to fill in all of the gaps. I mean, and I guess the second thing is just it's engaging. The kids loved the activities. They loved our small group lessons. We could do small group but within small group, we could do pairs or small groups within that, which gave me more time to spend looking at kids, which you can then group kids by ability, but you don't have to. You know, it's the program encompasses everything I think that you need to get the kids to where they need to be by the end of the year.
Do you feel like the videos that you get inside managing math stations, do you feel like it really helped you learn how to really truly differentiate your instruction, like that made it simpler?
Yes. It breaks things down nicely and gives you those avenues for, okay, these are the problems I'm having with this group of the kids. This could help with that. And it just gives you those paths that you can take within your classroom to help all of the kids in different ways. So yeah, it was very beneficial.
Oh, I love that. Thank you. All right, Melissa, what is one thing you feel like teachers need to know?
Well, this came up a lot on your most recent webinar that you hosted. It's the time. And what I would tell teachers is that you can make it work. Even if it seems impossible and you have only 60 minutes for math, you can make it work. It just takes diving in, giving it a try, and then making the tweaks along the way, because that's exactly what I had to do. And no matter how much time you have, that, I mean, you're going to be making those tweaks, but it's all there and it benefits the kids, but it also benefits the teacher. Like it is a win-win for everybody in the classroom.
Oh, I love that. And I would say that's probably one of the biggest setbacks that teachers have, or maybe not necessarily a setback, but something that keeps them from trying, is because they feel like they don't have enough time. And it's really not about how much time you have. It's what you do with the time that you do have. And you might try something and you might try it for a couple of days and you say, hey, okay, this is not working, but you don't give up on it. You continue to tweak and make those changes to figure out what works for you with the time that you have. And so that's why guided math is so flexible, because you are able to make those tweaks. So thank you for sharing. All right, Crystal, what about you? What is one thing you feel like teachers need to know?
Sorry, I'm gonna step out for break quick.
No, that's okay. I can come back to you if that's better.
No, it's okay. I'm good now. For me, I guess for me is looking at what your TEKS are, and looking at what your school priority standards are, and then looking at what you providing for your managing station, and starting off with increments. Starting off with what you can handle. Don't think you have to do everything in that first year.
Yeah.
You know, just pace yourself out, because you're gonna get better every year. And I think it's just not like a thing you just sign up for and then, feel like you have to get everything crammed in, but just pace it out. That's what I would say.
I love that, because I think that the more and more you practice, obviously the better you are going to get at it. But then, the new school year rolls around and you have a brand new group of kiddos and you're also kind of starting over too. And, I share this in my personal story that, I felt like it took me a good 2 to 3 years to really feel confident in what I was doing and for it to be working effectively. But each year was different, and I just kind of had to take it a little bit at a time, and pace myself and focus on getting one thing done like correctly, where I felt comfortable with it. And once I felt comfortable with that, then okay, hey, I feel okay with this. Now let's try something a little bit different. But it's trial, and you're going to have a lot of errors, and there's going to be days when you feel like this is not going to work, but it's just the confidence and the motivation to keep going with it, because it's kind of like, like our kids, we teach them not to give up when things feel hard. And it's like when something clicks, you're like, okay, like I got this, I'm going to keep going. And so we instill that motivation in our students, and that is something that we as teachers need to have as well. So thank you for sharing. All right, Courtney, what about you? What is one thing you feel like teachers need to know?
I think it's mainly just that it's self-paced. And for me, that was big because I'm a mom of 4. I was going back, and the fact that I could take my time and really process it however I needed to, and that I can continue to go back to it. If I'm feeling weak in an area, I can go back to it and go, oh yeah, that's how I need to try this. Just that aha for me is being able to have something to fall back on when I feel like something's not working. I can go back to the basics and figure out what maybe I missed, or maybe a different way of looking at it.
Yeah, awesome. I love that. All right, Lynn, and what about you? What do you feel like other teachers need to know?
I think that one of the biggest things for me was if you feel like you've failed or made mistakes, that means you're learning. So this allowed me a way and a framework that if I made a mistake, I could go back, just like Courtney said, let's see, what else could I try differently? How can I look at this? So, you're teaching your students that mistakes means you're learning. Well, as a teacher, we're in that same boat. So using this as a tool to help you learn and hone your craft, I think is one of the biggest things for me.
Awesome. I love hearing that. And it makes me feel really good to just hear all of your stories and how managing math stations has had just such a positive impact on the teaching that you're doing in classrooms. Because when I think about that teaching impact and how it's impacted you, and then I think about how many students and how many kids that impacts, not only just with you, but with all of the teachers inside the program. So we're going to kind of wrap things up here, but I just want to, I want to take just a second and thank each of you for being here with me today. I'm going to really quickly, I'm going to ask, hey, Melanie, do we happen to have any questions from anyone? Or if anyone is watching, whether you're watching live on Facebook or you're hanging out with us here on Zoom, does anyone have a question for any of our alumni members? We'll take just a minute or so and see if anyone has any questions. I am gonna hop over. I'm gonna check on Facebook really quickly if it will even let me without messing anything, kind of tell me a little bit about yourself. So Lynn, I'm going to have you go first because you're the first one that I can see. It was playing it live. Okay, no, we don't want to do that. Okay, I think we're good. I don't think that we have any questions. So what I'm going to do is we are going to wrap up. I am going to let everyone go. Everybody, thank you just so much for hanging out with me. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. Real quick, I want everybody to smile and wave because I'm going to take a picture of everybody. And all right. So I hope everyone enjoys the rest of your afternoon. So enrollment for Managing Math Stations is open until Friday. So you have until this Friday to join the class of 2023, and you get to hang out with me and all of these lovely ladies and so much more. And that is one of the biggest things that I love about Managing Math Stations is just the community that we have to be able to help and support one another as well. So thank all of you. Thank you for being here, and all of my alumni, be on the lookout for an email from me later this afternoon. And I am going to let everyone go. Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy the rest of your summer. And I will talk to you later. Bye, everyone. Thank you.